Well, here we are, gathered today in holiday recovery mode. Tomorrow, schools will be back in session. Activities will pick back up. Our regular schedules will be back in full swing. It seems like it is all over. And yet, there's one more holy day to look to this week as we await the official celebration of the arrival of the wise men at the house where Mary, Joseph, and the young Jesus were staying before returning to their home in Nazareth. While in other countries, Three Kings Day is celebrated much more widely, much more like Christmas, in fact. In the United States, we often forget about the arrival of the Magi, treating it like any other day. And yet it is the arrival of the kings, as they have been known, that marked a kind of opening up of God to other people, people from outside of Israel, people like you and like me. It was the wise men and their willingness to encounter whatever and whoever it was that they might find at the place where the star stopped, with celebration, joy, and admiration, that first introduced the possibility that this child, this new shepherd, would be a savior for all people. As I thought about this new idea regarding the wise guys, as some have called them, I saw a few themes emerging for me from this story in a new way this year as well. So today, I ask that you indulge me as we walk perhaps another road, as we speak about welcome, the extraordinary, the new path we are called to walk, and what all these things have to do with what will come soon enough in today's service, namely our gathering once again around God's holy table. So first, as I read through the story of the wise men once again, and through some of the history as well, I saw it this year as a story of welcome and intention. The wise men were welcomed at Herod's palace and even called in for a special meeting with the king himself. They made the king aware of something that he perhaps did not know before, or perhaps did not want to deal with, as he worried about his own future and the future of his dynasty. So he welcomed them and then sent them out into the world with a new task, to find the child and then bring the information back about where Jesus could be found. When the wise men set out on the road to find the new king of the Jews, we might imagine that they were looking to find this powerful creature in a palace, much like Herod's. And yet, instead, as we all know, they found that the star they followed rested over a small house in the small town of Bethlehem. And what they found inside may have shocked them even more. A small child in the arms of a teenage mother with a hard-working carpenter for a stepfather. And yet the story says that they went inside the house and paid him homage with overwhelming joy. They were welcomed inside by these humble folks and were able to celebrate all together the arrival of this special child. We might think about the intention of the various characters we are introduced to in this story. Herod, after all, was power hungry and trying to protect his territory. So the intention behind his welcome of these strangers from the east was to find out all that he could about this new king, and in obtaining that information, be sure that any threat to his power was eliminated, no matter what force or brutal measures needed to be taken in order to do so. Mary and Joseph, on the other hand, welcomed the wise men, perhaps out of joy they saw in the eyes and heard in the voices of these strangers who had come to meet their child, and more likely because they had been raised with the belief that it was important to offer welcome and hospitality to anyone who came to see you. And the wise men were blessed with this welcome as they in turn welcomed the young Jesus into their hearts and minds as the Messiah and offered him the extravagant gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. So second, there is still some question about who these wise men were exactly. Some say they were interpreters of dreams. Others seem to think they were astrologists or magicians of some sort. No matter who they were, they had heard that there was a child born who was someone special. And as they came to meet the child Jesus and his parents along their journey, they came to realize that the ordinary was truly extraordinary in this case. Everything about where the wise men would have found Jesus was more than likely pretty ordinary for that time. And yet they knew something was different. They found a child born to that young mother in a small, probably one-room house in a small town. Even the hospitality they more than likely would have received would have been ordinary. Welcome into the home, some water to wash up, a meager meal. And yet they knew that from these ordinary beginnings, something extraordinary would arise.